If you've been working with Kubernetes for a while, you've probably heard about admission controllers. And if the term sounds complicated, don't worry. The idea is actually much simpler than it sounds. Think about what happens when someone creates a resource in Kubernetes. Maybe they create a pod, deploy an application, or create a service. Kubernetes receives that request through the API server. Now imagine the API server as the security gate of a large office building. Before anyone is allowed inside, someone checks the request. Is it valid? Does it follow company rules? Does it need any modifications? That is exactly where admission controllers come into the picture. Admission controllers are special plugins that intercept requests after authentication and authorization, but before the object is actually stored in Kubernetes. In simple terms, they act as the final checkpoint before Kubernetes accepts a resource. Let's understand this with an example. Suppose a developer creates a pod without specifying CPU or memory limits. Technically, Kubernetes can allow it. But your organization may have a rule that every pod must have resource limits. An admission controller can automatically add those limits or reject the pod entirely. This helps maintain consistency and prevents bad configurations from entering the cluster. Now, there are two major types of admission controllers. The first type is mutating admission controllers. As the name suggests, these controllers can modify the request. For example, they can inject sidecar containers, add labels, add annotations, or apply default values before the resource is created. A famous example is service mesh technologies like Istio. When a pod is created, a mutating admission controller can automatically inject a sidecar proxy into that pod. The developer never has to manually add it. The second type is validating admission controllers. These do not change anything. Instead, they check whether the request follows the required rules. If the request violates a policy, Kubernetes rejects it. For example, if a pod tries to run with privileged access, a validating admission controller may deny the request. So remember this simple difference. Mutating controllers modify. Validating controllers verify. Now let's walk through the complete request flow. A user sends a request to create a pod. First, Kubernetes authenticates the user. It verifies who is making the request. Next comes authorization. Kubernetes checks whether that user has permission to perform the action. After that, admission controllers are triggered. Mutating controllers run first. They can modify the resource. Then validating controllers run. They verify the final version of the resource. If everything looks good, Kubernetes stores the object in etc., and the resource gets created. This sequence is important because validation should happen after all modifications are completed. Otherwise, Kubernetes could validate one version of the object and store a different version. Now let's talk about some commonly used admission controllers. One of the most popular is LimitRanger. It helps enforce resource limits and requests. If developers forget to specify them, LimitRanger can apply defaults. Another important one is ResourceQuota. Imagine multiple teams sharing a cluster. Without limits, one team could consume all available resources. ResourceQuota prevents this by restricting how many resources a namespace can use. Then there's namespace lifecycle. This controller ensures resources are created only in valid namespaces. It prevents accidental deployments into namespaces that do not exist. Another well-known controller is default storage class. If a developer creates a persistent volume claim without specifying a storage class, Kubernetes can automatically assign a default one. This improves the user experience and reduces configuration mistakes. In modern Kubernetes environments, you'll also hear a lot about admission webhooks. These are extremely powerful. Instead of relying only on built-in controllers, organizations can create their own custom logic. When a request arrives, Kubernetes sends it to an external webhook. That webhook decides whether to modify the request or approve it. This allows companies to implement organization-specific policies. For example, a company might require every workload to contain specific labels. Or they may enforce security standards before applications are deployed. Admission webhooks make these kinds of policies possible. Now you might be wondering why admission controllers are so important. The answer is governance. In small clusters, people can manually follow best practices. But in large organizations with hundreds of developers and thousands of workloads, manual enforcement becomes impossible. Admission controllers ensure that rules are applied automatically and consistently. They improve security. They improve compliance. They reduce configuration mistakes. And they help maintain operational standards across the entire cluster. So if you remember only one thing from this video, remember this. Admission controllers are Kubernetes gatekeepers. Every resource request passes through them before entering the cluster. Some controllers modify requests. Some validate requests. Together, they help ensure that only safe, compliant, and properly configured resources are allowed into Kubernetes. And once you understand admission controllers, you'll realize they are one of the most important building blocks for running Kubernetes securely and efficiently at scale. If you found this helpful, hit that like button and subscribe for more.